So my name is Mary Petrino. I've been a Basilica parishioner for about 35 years. My husband and my daughter are buried in this beautiful historic cemetery just up the hill.
So Mary, tell me a little bit about the backstory of how these tiles came to fruition.
So these tiles, these beautiful Portuguese azulo tiles, are really a fruit of our 2022 pilgrimage that we made. We walked the Camino, but first we visited Portugal. We visited Lisbon and we went to Fatima, and we visited so many of the holy sites, Belém, and all these beautiful places where we have exquisite exterior tile work. So when Father Hathaway was beginning to contemplate what we would do over here at the school in that lovely niche that we have under the St. James Library in the archway, we wanted something to represent Our Lady of Guadalupe, and originally I think Father was thinking about a bas-relief image or something, and I said, wait a minute, the image of the tilma is 2D, and it's the most perfect icon of Our Lady that we have because it's unexplainable. So I said, what about seeing if we could render it in tile, like those beautiful Portuguese azulos that we saw everywhere in Lisbon, in Belém, where we went to all the great churches that have had those tiles in place for 500 years or more. And so it was a natural outgrowth that we would, of course, do the tiles, and we did a smaller scale tile at that time to represent Our Lady of Guadalupe, and we reproduced the tilma exactly. So when Father began to contemplate what would happen here in the Queen of Heaven Columbarium, I thought it might be nice to do the tiles once again, but as the process evolved through working with Ann Mathis and Lou DeCoco from St. Jude Liturgicals and all of our consulting team, I really began to focus on, wait a minute, how can we represent each of these sections of the Queen of Heaven Columbarium in a meaningful way that bespoke the individual sections. So Anne explained to me, well, we're going to have one that's, the Archangel Gabriel, and one that's dedicated to Our Lady, and another that's going to be dedicated to the resurrection, and then one to St. Joseph. I said, well, that's perfect, because I know where we need to start. We're the Basilica of St. Mary. We need to start with Our Lady. So thinking about those tiles of Our Lady of Guadalupe and what would happen here, I said, it would be nice if we could find one artist who represented Our Lady perfectly. And I don't think of any one depiction more perfect than what is in the Basilica itself, which is a reproduction of the famous Murillo Walpole Immaculate Conception. Now remember that at the time that Murillo was painting, like in the 1630s and 40s and 50s, at the height of his career, he was painting all of these images, over 24 images of the Immaculate Conception, 500 years before the dogma was proclaimed. And this to me was, I said to Father, this is where we have to start. So we went back and forth a lot, but Murillo was truly the only artist that we could find that had the depiction of the Archangel Gabriel, of our Lord resurrected, and of St. Joseph, and how perfectly, because he also had St. Joseph with the child Jesus. So it's a testimony in art to what the Basilica is all about, because we focus on Our Lady, we focus on the Immaculate Conception. Even the statue outside the church says, I am the Immaculate Conception. Our beautiful crowned image inside the Basilica, that's over 130 years old, also is an image of Our Lady in the pose of humility as the Immaculate Conception. So we decided that these tiles needed to be more monochrome. So at first we were trying to see if they would go with the brick, but then we said, no, we really need to play off of the coloration of the granite so that we honor the people whose remains are interred here in this Columbarium. So this is a very prayerful tribute to all of the church suffering, and this is why we toned it to match the blues of the Basilica and the grays of the Columbarium granite. So we're just so happy, having worked with St. Jude's, having worked with the tiles makers in Portugal, who actually helped us develop these beautiful borders that are surrounding these magnificent works of Merula's artwork and leaving a legacy.